Assalamualaikum and Assalamualaikum and a warm welcome to all our honorable speakers and all the participants of the JSMU COVID-19 webinar series. Today's topic that we're going to discuss is the role of public sector universities' response to the current pandemic. I'm Professor Marie Andrade from Family Medicine, will be moderating this session. We all know that this pandemic has had a major impact on universities, both in terms of education, in the functioning, as well as in fulfilling our social responsibilities and research. We are very honored and fortunate today to have three Vice Chancellors with us from Sindh. One is Professor Tariq Rafi, Vice Chancellor of Jinnah Sindh Medical University, Professor Mohammad Saeed Qureshi, Vice Chancellor, Dow University of Health Sciences, and Professor Bika Ram Devrajani, Vice Chancellor, Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences. They will all be giving their experiences and views on how the universities have responded to the pandemic. And while just to inform the participants, there's a question answer box right at the big top end of the page on the right hand side. You can pose your questions throughout the presentation, but the answers will be given after all three presentations are over. Each presentation will be of approximately 10 to 12 minutes. So our first speaker for today is Professor Mohammad Saeed Qureshi, Meritorious Professor of Surgery, Professor Dow University of Health Sciences. His community commitment is reflected in the development of Shaheed Benazir Bhutto Trauma and Accident Center. Under his leadership, Dow University has grown exponentially in education and research. He has numerous international presentations as well as research publications. I now invite Professor Saeed to give his talk.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum everybody. The COVID-19 outbreak in late February in Pakistan, the first case was reported on the 26th of February, led to various changes in the universities. And the major change was that the universities' classrooms were closed down, the students were asked not to enter the campus, and now we had a problem on our hands, how to complete the curriculum. And what the Dow University did was we went on to online classes immediately. Initially, we had teething problems with the online classes, but then the Higher Education Commission made it compulsory for the online teachers to undertake courses on the Coursera, which were available for free. And now there are a number of our faculty who have finished with these courses and are doing it. In addition to that lectures, then we went on, and I'm going to go around in a sort of a circle. We went around and conducted our supplementary examinations online, which were a part of partly multiple choice questions and partly oral examinations. We had to modify our oral examinations in such a way that we could cover the course content, and this was achievable by actually going to the slightly more old-fashioned Viva system and conducting these exams. There were always objections that people who were doing the MCQs from home may use unfair means, but wherever this happened, this became obvious when they did their Viva examination, and we could clearly pick up who was using unfair means. First of all, they had very high marks in the MCQ examination, and in the Viva examination, they didn't hold a place in any fashion. Subsequently, we have developed clinical modules. Faisal Ghani is designing these modules. Some of these modules have already been designed, And now we will be using these clinical modules to do clinical teaching online. Because even in yesterday's meeting, we have not been allowed to allow students onto the campus or in the hospitals. So that is the state of affairs as far as educating the MBBS and BDS students, or even the pharmacy students, or our other paramedical students. On the paramedical side, there is some weakness in the nursing school and also in our IMT, the medical technology school, where possibly students don't have that much access to computers and they are not very good at using computers. They are not very computer literate, really. So, but that we will sort it out and we will cover it up subsequently. Now, coming to our management, Dow University runs a hospital at the OJA campus. In fact, two hospitals at the OJA campus, the Dow University Hospital and the OJA Institute of Chest Diseases Hospital. And our faculty is deeply in, although we do not manage the civil hospital, our faculty provides all the clinical services to the civil hospital patients. And here also work at the OJA hospital, not the OICD, but at the Dow University Hospital at the OJA campus actually started off admitting and isolating patients immediately. And then because of our air conditioning systems, we could isolate the COVID-19 positive patients. So ICU services were also started from day one. And this has been an ongoing process. Initially, on the ventilation side, we had problems. We were intubating patients immediately, and the mortality was very high. But subsequently, we have not very long after starting off, after about a week or so, what we did, we converted to high flow oxygen and to non-invasive ventilation. We were using the ventilator, the IPPB mode of the ventilators and the CPAP mode of the ventilators, and we continued to ventilate them in a non-invasive fashion, and we found that our mortality rates were going down. And at the moment, we have in total from day one to today, we have a mortality rate of 32% as far as ICUs are concerned. I'm not talking about the total number of patients in the hospital, but the ICUs. Here again, we have 16 beds in the hospital for putting in COVID-19 patients. And in the OJA center, we have 48 beds. And again, we are improving on that area with further and putting in, the government has given us more money, and we are going to put in more equipment and more of ventilatory support equipment. At the civil hospital also, although the isolation ward was functioning very well, the space was limited, and now the government has brought about major changes at the civil hospital, and almost half of the civil hospital is now a COVID-19 hospital. So there also a lot of work is being done, and a large number of patients are being treated. As far as testing is concerned, we were possibly one of the first, probably the first laboratory, because what we did is we did not rely on kits. We actually got in primers from South Korea, and we started our own testing system. And after validation, we found that it was highly successful. And till commercial kits became available in the market, we actually were using this system for diagnosing patients. At that time, the pickup rate, or even when the kits arrived, the pickup rate was around about 5 to 8%. It varied from day to day. Then suddenly we found that it started going up rapidly, and on some days we even had 40% positive tests with very significant morbidity amongst the patients. And a large number of these patients had to be admitted suddenly, and hence there was not exactly a shortage of beds, but the beds started filling up rapidly. We have also been working on the research side. Initially, we did some work with the HEJ on looking at the viral genome. There is no drastic change in the viral genome from the Wuhan virus, but there is some mutation because 11 of the sequences are different in the Pakistani viruses compared to the Wuhan virus. So there is some mutation which is taking place, and subsequently we haven't done any work because there was a lot of criticism that we were not doing it correctly. But we think that we had done an excellent job of that. Also on the again, on the research side, what we have been able to do is we have been able to isolate the COVID-19 immunoglobulins in convalescent plasma. And work is ongoing on that on a fairly large scale to isolate these immunoglobulins and then be able to provide these to the patients. We have had some problem with an experiment which was actually to be done elsewhere, where they had a problem in their laboratory in which we have to do some in vitro tests on the virus itself. But hopefully this will now restart, and within a week we will be able to get the results. There are other trials which are going on, or most of these are in conjunction with HEJ, where Chinese drugs are being used. There's a Chinese lady scientist who is based at the HEJ, and she brings in these drugs from China, which are supposed to be not allopathic drugs, but from basic medicinal plants, and these are also being tried out at the university. Another research trial that we are doing is trying to develop an artificial intelligence system whereby we are recording the cough of patients and then trying to develop an AI system which will, rather than tests, which will diagnose COVID-19 by the cough, the way that they cough. Other things are happening as well on the drug development side. We have a manufacturing plant, a DRAP registered manufacturing plant on site, which was originally developed for anti-snake venoms, but now we are also working on making some drugs, and then in fact the immunoglobulin will also be done in the same plant. So that is a gist of what is going on at the Dow University. It's an ongoing process, and every day other new ideas come up, are brought to me, and then looking at what will be the possible outcome, we go ahead and provide finance to the scientists. Another thing that has happened recently is because of the shortage of, imminent shortage of beds, the Sindh government decided to activate a hospital which has been lying abandoned near the Nipa Charangi, and that initially was a general hospital. Then it was decided that it be converted into a trauma hospital. And now finally we have been told that we should convert it into an infectious diseases hospital. And the government has provided us with the funds both for doing the finishing work and for providing the equipment. And inshallah, within 6 weeks, we will have 200 beds available. And in the first phase, by the 21st of June, we hope to have one floor ready, which will consist of 16 ICU beds and 64 general beds. And these are also in cubicles, so things will start working off. So that is what has happened at the Dow University. And I think now we are going to have Dr. Bikaram, is it?
Yes, you're right. Dr. Bikaram, thank you so much. Dr. Saeed Qureshi, Professor Saeed Qureshi, as Vice Chancellor, we can see you leading the university, especially the progress has been really impressive. The thought of artificial intelligence detecting through cough who could be susceptible or who is more likely to have COVID sounds very exciting. Best of luck in that particular venture, especially. I'd now like to invite our next speaker, Professor Vice Chancellor Bikaram Devrajani. My apologies for the hesitation in the name. He is Vice Chancellor of Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences. He is Honorary Professor of Academic Union, Oxford, UK. He has an impressive list of presentation with a cumulative impact factor of about 45. He acts as a focal person and facilitator for Hepatitis Prevention Control Program of Sindh, and he's editor-in-chief for Journal of Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences and World Journal of Medical Sciences. So over to you, Professor Bikaram. Sir, we can't hear you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me to join this webinar series seminar on COVID-19. Now, I have to more focus on the innovative research, what university in Pakistan, in our setting, what we can do. Professor Saeed Qureshi Saab has very well told the main areas where we are already working on the research. And you know, in our Hyderabad scenario, first of all, we were dealing with the cases of Tablighi group, and in those groups, most of them were asymptomatic, and few were symptomatic, and they all recovered except 3 people. They died of with their comorbidity, and they were having the comorbidity just like diabetes, ischemic heart disease, and extreme of ages. And one young patient died, a middle-aged person died of 45 years age, and having also diabetes and this thing. And all the other cases, they were dealt in a Sakhar. The PCR, we have conducted all those patients in our lab, and those patients all successfully, 276 patients, they recovered. And this article, our research article, has been published in the Pakistan Journal of Medical Sciences on the 28th of April, in a special supplement of the COVID series. So this is so there are 2 things, and what we are facing over here. So most of the patients are asymptomatic, and two to 3% patients are extremely serious, and they are coming to the hospital and they are dying immediately, as Professor Said Qureshi was talking about. So this is the this is the thing, that why those people are dying very quickly within short period, and why other patients having no any other symptoms and symptomatology. So we really need to work on the mutations of the COVID virus, and we are collecting the sample, and we are doing this study in the molecular and genetic labs of the Jamshoro. Another thing that for the at present, so definitely there are mutations. If there are mutations, then it will be very difficult to. I think I don't know, but the vaccination, regarding talking about the vaccination, if there are multiple mutations, then vaccination looks like not to be very quick in our country, because in China, Wuhan, the pattern was different clinical pattern. In Pakistan, the clinical pattern is different. And even in our all provinces, if you see the KPK, the Peshawar, the many people, they are dying very quickly. But in Hyderabad, up to now, there are 25 deaths up to now, and the number of patients, the screening we are doing in our lab, our capacity is from 600 to 1,000 PCR per day. If we are running 3 shifts, then we can have a 1,000 cases. We have done 1,000 cases many times. But the percentage, the positive cases percentage previously, it was about 5 to 10%. It was varying from 5 to 10%. But post Eid scenario, the suspected case, the sample we are collecting, and the positive cases ratio is 20% now. So this is really something alarming. So this is going to be increased. And as you know, the smart lockdown, because of smart lockdown, our people, they don't care about the mask and self care. They are not following the SOPs in the remote areas and small cities and small towns. And so this is really needs to be addressed. Another thing, that plasma therapy, the passive immunization, this I first of all, by myself, I was thinking on this, because this is a well recognized mode of treatment in previous years and previous decades, many years, many centuries. So we were thinking on this, and I talked with the Professor Tahir Shamsi, and then we make a proposal, and then we get the permission from the government and from the register with the Drug Regulatory Authority. Up to now, we have transfused passive immunization in Hyderabad in patient, because the number of the patient indoor patient in Hyderabad are very less. We are lucky that very serious patients are very less in Hyderabad up to now. We don't know in future. In that, 9 patients, 1 patient died, and other patients, they all have recovered and very well. So this hopes. And as Professor Said Qureshi Saab is talking about the immunoglobulin, IgG, so I think this will be the, if we work very hard, and if we will be able to produce this passive immunoglobulin, then it will be more safer than the plasma. But fortunately, we have got no any side effect, and no any major anaphylaxis or major harm to the patient. And 1 patient having mild itching, and that patient also recovered. So this is the thing. Now, another thing, when we are looking on different studies, you know, in Pakistan, the diabetes, metabolic disorder, hypertension, ischemic heart disease, they are very much high. And the people, those are having the ischemic heart disease, they are dying very earlier, and they are previously on the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 inhibitors. So in different, I've seen this a few studies in which it is said that the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 may cause the upregulation of and this virus will cause more harm to the lungs. So our patients already on ARBs, and we are some studies. I was seeing this study 2 days back from some other countries, that they say that there is no role of angiotensin converting ARBs in causing the worsening of the disease. So we really need to do this study, and we should plan the study, and this study should be multi-center so that we can achieve the sample size correctly and rapidly, so that we can say that with either, because we know the angiotensin converting enzyme, AC inhibitor, these are the drug of choice in ischemic patient, along with the diabetes to prevent the nephropathy, many things. So this really needs to be studied very quick. So, and there are, Professor Said Qureshi Sahab has rightly said that there are many daily new ideas. Now, now the thing is that why our patients, some patients are asymptomatic, why few patients are extremely serious, and even without the comorbidities. And so we should look on this mutations and this scenario, and we are looking for this at our level. And if any university is interested, then we can have a we can have a collaborated multi-center study. And regarding the clinical trials of different medicines, which has been started by the University of Health Sciences, Lahore, and under the leadership of Professor Javed Akram, and in which the chloroquine, azithromycin, some of the HIV drugs. But now the annals of the general medicine of the American College of Physicians, General Tutorial, I was studying the paper, that they say that the chloroquine and hydrochloroquine, they are not good drugs to prevent or to treat the treat the COVID patients. And although in old age patient, in ischemic patient, in hypertensive patient, it may cause the harm by prolonging the QT interval. So actually, we are already using this drug in many diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, for 2 months, 3 months. In our patient, we are not find any such a complication of a prolonged QT interval. But if the patient is known a case of ischemic heart disease, hypertensive, then definitely they will have. Another thing, the study has been published in one journal, which a study has been conducted in the Europe, and in which they say that anti-inflammatory drugs, they do work, just like the naproxen. So this anti-inflammatory drug, they can work on this. So now we can conduct the trial about these drugs, azithromycin, because that trial of the UHS will end up at some point whether these drugs are beneficial or not. But I think we have got now the COVID. I think it will be it will remain endemic, and we have to live with the COVID. And so now we have to make the strategy as a universities to aware the public how to get themselves. Although government is doing on a lot, but the people, there are different thoughts. People say that there is nothing, there's no disease, there's nothing, just flu. Why you are worried? Most of the people, they believe on this thing in our areas. And if only few patients, few people, they realize that this is the disease. And so really we university needs to educate our community through our students. And when we are taking the lecture, we should arrange some awareness lectures for the students of all these sub-specialties, MBBS, BDS, nursing, pharmacy, and physiotherapy, IBT, whatever the students we have got. They are intermediate, past students when they get entry. So we can make a simple presentation, and we should educate the students. So and we should give them the task to the students that where they live, they in that areas, they should convey our message. in this way we can face with this COVID. Unfortunately, many important people we are losing with the COVID, and this is really very important, very bad. Regarding the health facilities available with us, we have got a 20-bedded ICU, 20-bedded high dependency unit in city branch. We have got a isolation ward also in the city branch, city hospital, and we are also planning to have a 40-bedded ICU in Jamshoro, because in Jamshoro campus this hospital is of more than 600 bedded. So I think number of patients will surely they will increase, and then we will convert this whole Jamshoro campus into the COVID hospital. Unfortunately, expert of infectious disease are very few in our country, and we have got no any in a whole of the interior Sindh. There is no any expert of infectious disease person. So we need those persons, and we should identify, and we are in this plan to hire them and to give them so that they can help us. And other thing that in the research, I think we have to more focus on the you see the IGG. If Professor Saeed Qureshi Saab talk with some multinational companies, just like where they are making they can make these IgG antibodies by recombinant DNA technology, then this will be very helpful to whole world, because passive immunization is the major. In my thinking, the passive immunization will be more quickly. They will be given to the patient for the prevention, vaccination. Let us hope. Many of the people, they claim that in the January 2021 the vaccine will be available, and that is in different trials in different phases of the study, and phase 2, phase 1, phase 2 trial. The people who are even UK, the people phase 1 and phase 2 both they have combined. And even in Pakistan, some of people, they are thinking on this, and they are, I think, probably doing it, but still we don't know about the vaccination. So this is regarding a whole. In Jamshoro, sir, we have got a TB sanatorium. We have converted that hospital into the COVID hospital because Jamshoro district has got its own population, and there are 15 to 20 patients averagely over there. And for quarantine, we have got a lot of the labor colonies, and we are quarantined over there. So this is the whole about the things what we can do as a university. Thank you very much. Hello.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devrajani. Thank you so much for sharing what Liaquat University of Medical and Health Sciences is doing. I think what you talked about, the mutation, studies on mutation that your university is doing, and also with regard to the multi-center study, I think many people will actually be looking forward to this particular aspect. I'd now like to invite last but not least speaker, Professor Vice Chancellor Tariq Rafi, Vice Chancellor of Jinnah Sindh Medical University. Professor Rafi has the honor of, and we have the privilege of being the founding Vice Chancellor of Jinnah Sindh Medical University. Professor Rafi has been working a lot in education, and because of that he was awarded Tamgha-e-Imtiaz by the President of Pakistan for his outstanding contribution to the field of medical education. So Professor Rafi, over to you.
Thank you, Mari. First of all, I am highly grateful to Professor Saeed Qureshi and Professor Bikaram for taking time out of the busy schedule for this webinar that we have arranged. The basic purpose of this webinar was to gather information that different medical universities are doing in Sindh, and at the same time look for the ways forward of what we can do. As Saeed Saab has said very truly that we have to live with it. We have to find ways. All the paradigm, there has to be a big paradigm shift in the medical education, in teaching, training, research, and everything. Now, because this is the first time that we are facing with such an enormous type of pandemic, that we are to be very honest, not only we, but the whole world was not prepared for that. As a result of it, that the things have been changing drastically. We have to adjust, and as the government has decided yesterday to ease down all the other things like the transport has been opened up, the tourism has been opened up, the shops will remain open from 6 to 7 in the evening. So all this will definitely increase the number of patients who are coming, and the load on the hospitals will increase. But as a medical university and as a university as a whole, we have to look forward of the ways of how can we cope with it in these circumstances for educating our children. We had a number of meetings on internet with the HEC, and all of you were there. But unfortunately, what HEC gave us is regarding a general university plan. For a medical university where we need to have students that should go and see the patients, they need to have training that should be on the patient, and the examination should include examination of the patient, other things, which is something we don't know how to plan to do it. What we have done, that we have started the online teaching programs. Initially, the students were not satisfied. The teachers did not have any idea of how to do it. Then we started our courses on that, trying to make them to do the recording according to the guidelines given by HEC. The HEC has given guidelines of making an internet online academic council, which we have done. And under that, the lectures are prepared, they are sent. Now, there are two options that are being forward. One is that we can have them with the students listening and at the same time, and they are asking questions, or at the same time, it could be a recorded one. We are right now doing both of them. For example, in pharmacy, it is an online where the students are communicating on Zoom, and also in public health. But in our MBBS and BDS, we have got recorded lectures to do. We have also started a training program for doctors, nurses, which is an online training program for which certificates are given. These training programs are basically designed only for COVID training of how to see, how to train these patients, how to doctors and nurses, when they come across these patients, how to diagnose them, and what recent advancements have taken place so as to make them aware of that. But having said all that, the issue that we are facing right now, and I think all of us are facing, is that we had a meeting about 15 days back with all the medical universities under the instructions of the HEC to find ways of how we will move forward, especially the medical universities, in taking the exams and classes. So we decided that we can ask the students to come over, make them according to the SOPs that are made, and make them sit in the exam. Dr. Saeed Qureshi informed me the next day that they have already done an exam online, and they have also taken a Viva online, and that has been a success. So that is one model which we can ask the examination department and IT how they have done it. We were discussing of having few students who are there in the supplementary exams, that we can call them, and with only 30-40 students in one class of a supplementary exam, we can make them sit and do this. But yesterday I went to see the Secretary Universities and Board, and a meeting that took place of all the Vice Chancellor, we decided that we will do that. But at the same time, we also decided that we will ask the government if they have any objection on that. Just 3 days back, I got a call from Javed Akram from UHS that they are going to hold these exams with the physical presence of the students. Yesterday, I was watching a TV channel where the students were protesting against calling them, and they said that who is going to be responsible if they develop a corona, and there was a lot of hue and cry, and they were asking the governor to postpone this exam, physical presence. They said that we are not in a hurry, that the exam should be held. So when I went yesterday and to see Mr. Riazuddin Qureshi Sahab, and I requested him to allow us to do examination physically for just 20-30 students who are there in each class for the supplementary exam, so that the students could be settled whether they are moving to the next class or not. But he was of the opinion that the Chief Minister has instructed him very clearly that the children should not be exposed at any cost to any physical presence because of the fear of corona. So he told me that it will be a wiser decision not to ask the students to come for physically to take the exam or Viva. So one thing is sure, that right now we do not have the option of physically asking the students to come. So the option that is left, he told me, was only that you can go through the online examination system and the online Viva system. Then there is another issue that though we do not have that much big issue, and that is of the admission test for the postgraduates, for example, for the FCPS or master's program or other program. How can those be held? It has then to be online, and I think that is the only way. And he told me that it has to be something that you can only do online. But he said if the course is not going to start immediately, then you can also delay those online. And if you are not going to admit this, you are going to admit the students, but you're not going to start the classes immediately, then there is no point in doing these entry tests right now, even online, and you can wait. But for the examination, he was of the opinion that right now, the only viable option that we could be offered is through the online examination system. So these are the things that we have to see, because HEC was of the opinion that the academic year should not be extended. It should complete at time. I don't know how that can happen. I'd like to take your opinions of how that could happen. PMDC was of the opinion that, as being a member of PMDC, when last time we discussed, was of the opinion that without an entry test, how can you make a judgment of the caliber of a student, because already the government has given the 11th grade as a benchmark for their merit. So if 11th grade and O levels is given the benchmark for the students, and there is no entry test, how can it take place? If the entry test has to take place, then how will it take place? Because in Punjab, it is more than 100,000 students who have to appear. In Sindh also, we have got around 30,000 students who take the entry test. So these are the issues. I don't know how, because in September, normally we start the admission of these students. And right now, our semester's exam are there in June and July. How can we do them? If we have to take them, then the only way in June and July is what we proposed last time is that we delayed this semester of June, July till November, and we take this semester in November, and after a gap of a month, we take the second semester of that same year, because we were expecting that by November, probably this COVID-19, I won't say it will go away, but it will not be that bad, and we can ask, and we will be maybe allowed to ask the students to come to appear in the exam, because 350 students in an MBBS class that we have, and along with around more than 600 students that we have from the affiliated colleges for each class, it will be a very difficult task to hold. So I will not be, because I am so knowledgeable to speakers before me, talked about all the research that is going on and everything that has been done. And we are also working on it. Our public health department is working on mapping of these. And one interesting thing that came yesterday, and all of you must be aware that in Punjab, especially in Lahore, when a committee was formed to do the mapping and to find out the number of patients that could probably be there in Lahore, the figure came around 700,000 patients maybe there in Lahore alone. So if such a study is carried out by the public health department or public health schools in Karachi, maybe the figure will be double, because Karachi is almost double the population of Punjab. So maybe 1.5 million will be there who will be asymptomatic but are suffering from the disease. So it's a very bad scenario that we have right now. What I can say is we do not know what to do right now. We do not have a very clear vision. So we have started the telemedicine courses, and we are doing the teleclinic. Our family medicine, and Mari is there. She is running a teleclinic, online courses for general practitioners. Because you see, in the wave of this coronavirus, other diseases are just forgotten. So we have started this telemedicine. We have given numbers to the patients. It's not free of charge. They call us from 10 to 2, and our family medicine is giving them a telemedicine, and they are helping it. And nursing and allied health sciences, we are also doing courses for to train the nurses for training on COVID and how to do it. Similarly, they will be given certificated in CME accreditation, and same is for the doctors. The JSMU is trying to contribute to this to the extent that they can do, and the spreading of medical information through print media and also through digital media. We are trying to do that through social media. We are spreading information, because you see, there is no treatment. The only thing that we know right now is that care and prevention is the only way we can help it. There is social distancing, wearing masks, washing hands, and unfortunately, which is being ignored. And the only way we can make people understand is by repeatedly going through social media or through print media or through television channels and asking them to do it. So we have been making a number of presentations on that and giving it. We have got number of flyers that we have made and distributed amongst the general public for this. So the university is trying to play its role in improving the situation by whatever we can do. I think should have time left for those who have to ask questions. My main concern, in addition to the research and all the medical treatment that we are offering, is how we are going to deal with the teaching and training of our students in these circumstances. We don't want half-cooked students to go on the pass the exam without being tested properly, that they do deserve to pass the exam, because that will be a very big disaster. I remember when I was a student, because of certain political reasons, my 5 years course of MBBS was completed in 7 years. So there could be time, but nobody took a shortcut of giving me a promotion without an exam. We had to sit at home. We completed the 5 years in 7 years, but we had to appear in each exam as it is done everywhere. I think that's enough, and I think there should be some time for those who have to ask questions. Thank you, Mari.
Thank you so much, Professor. I would like to thank you for highlighting the exam issue. There are many students currently logged in and they all have the same question as to what's going to happen about the exam, how is their course going to be completed. So yes, thank you for highlighting that. And now we will open the panels for question and answer session. There are we have about 30 to 40, about 35 questions that have come in. The first question now, what I would like to do is perhaps direct it to certain people, certain VCs at times, or leave it open and y'all can answer as y'all think appropriate. So the first question is, what strategies can be used to educate general public to prevent themselves from I think this is Vice Chair.
Clear nahi aa rahi awaaz. I'm not getting.
Now can you hear me?
Yep, better.
Okay. So the first question is, what strategies can be used to educate the general public to prevent themselves and others from this COVID-19 pandemic?
I think there are a lot of suggestions from the government, and the two principal suggestions are what is known as social distancing. It's basically physical distancing, that you should be at least 3 feet apart and ideally 6 feet apart when you are sitting in a room or even in a public place, and the mask must be worn by each and everybody who is outside the house. That probably is the most important thing, that to wear a mask. Now, these are the two most important things. Obviously, the other important thing is, if you are developing symptoms, then you must report to a physician to have yourself sorted out and have yourself tested. Now, this can be done. There are government-run testing centers. OJHA and Civil Hospital both have testing centers. Similarly, Dr. Bikar Ram's University has a testing center, so that is not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saeed. There's another question, which is regard to the role of medical education in this particular pandemic. Again, it is open to all three VCs. Perhaps Dr. Bikar Ram, you could answer this question. Can you hear us?
Yes, I am hearing.
Right. Yeah, sir, can you respond to this question on role of medical education in this pandemic?
This is a very important role of medical education. We can, we should, you see, that teach our population. We can guide our population. We can through our different ways. We have got a FM radio and Jamshoro, and we are already running the daily program on the awareness of the COVID and COVID with the ischemic heart disease, different diseases. We are giving this knowledge to those patients, and then so we are naturally there is the role of medical education. Definitely, this is a medical problem, so we have to play to give the different instruction, different directions. Suppose any lady which is she is pregnant and having the COVID, and then what she has to do, they have to do, because most of the patients they are home quarantine or home isolated nowadays, because hospitals got not such facility, but they so our role is to guide them that what you have to do. Suppose one can hold the breath for 10 seconds, it means the lungs are okay. If one cannot, then lungs are not okay. They should rush to the hospital. In spite of they are coming very late to the hospital because because of the smart lockdown, the availability of the ambulance, availability of the vehicles, that is not so frequently. So we always teach them, and we should have some centers, as in the government has already made that they are the helpline centers, and our young doctors are sitting there over there and they are answering those questions. And the people they are particularly they are in home isolated, they should be having the interaction daily on daily basis, and they should ask the question to, and we should respond them. And such a huge number, we cannot talk to everybody on every day. But if we can have a students, they are sitting at their homes and at the helpline, then we can make some groups of 10, 20 students, and we can give them the list that you should talk to 20 patients, 30 patients in a day, or 60 patients in a day. Ask the question from them, and now it is as Professor Said Qureshi Sahab rightly said, that we should keep the distance of even 6 feet, because in the closed areas, in even our ICU setup, they are not negative pressure ICUs, in which now previously it's okay, it's a droplet, but it remains in the air, so the aerosol can remain in that area, particular area. So we can so we have to make a long distance, and no any doctor or no any other person should stay with the COVID patient for more than 30 minutes. If you are a clinician, you are sitting in OPD, if you are taking the history, examining the patient, it should be the studies. Some studies has been done. It's proved that if you are expose that patient less than 30 seconds, less than 30 minutes with the mask and all other measures, then you are less likely to be infected with the COVID. But if you spend a lot of the time, 1 hour more time, then definitely this is the problem. For example, in the aeroplanes, okay, there is social distancing, but one flight is at least 1 hour and 30 minutes, and that in which I don't think that nobody can be exposed. But this is very difficult to by touching the surfaces, by touching the things, because saliva can go at anywhere, and virus remains alive for many hours, up to 12 hours. So I think we have to take.
I think you fought only because there's so many questions, and I want to make sure that it comes across, so people are looking forward to answers. This is for Professor Tariq Rafi. Teaching online will cover the theoretical aspect. How would the skills be taught, and what kind of quality of doctors will be produced without giving them hands-on exposure? Sir, did you get the question? आवाज नहीं आ रही सर. Sir, you have put off your mute हो गया आपका mic. Sir, you have to unmute your mic.
Okay, can you listen to me now?
Ji, sir, the question, you heard the question.
Yeah, I heard the question. The question is basically what I have been talking about. That
Right.
in medical education, it is very difficult very different from the general other postgraduate classes or other educations, because we need to have these students trained on patients. They need to have a training in clinics, in wards, and that is something that requires them to be physically present. That requires them to see the patients, palpate them, auscultate them, whatever they have to do. Go to the operation theater, see the cases. Now that is something especially for right now, for the final year students, if not even for the third year students, for the final year students. I do not have an idea of how can we do it. The only thing that I can think of is that we have to wait and see whenever this pandemic goes down. I know it's not going to finish, and it's safer for the students to go to the wards and see the patients. The second thing is that I have no idea if there is any online courses available where you can do it clinically outside Pakistan. Internationally, are they available? But I don't think so, because the feeling of liver with your fingers cannot be done on a computer or on a something like that. So these are the things. Auscultation can be heard. Yes, you can hear them. Sounds are available. You can hear different sounds on auscultations. But the thing is that the clinical teaching and training has to be undertaken. I request Dr. Saeed, because he has got an experience, he can shed some light on it. कि ये जो क्लिनिकल एस्पेक्ट है बच्चों को ट्रेन करने का फाइनल के खास तौर पे, ये थिएटर की पोस्टिंग्स हैं, वार्ड की पोस्टिंग्स, इनको हम देखिए थ्योरी तो आपने पढ़ा दिया, लेकिन इसको कैसे हम कवर करेंगे? हाउ कैन वी डू इट? बिकॉज बगैर ये सब कुछ किए वगैरह पास कर देंगे ऑनलाइन, तो ये बच्चे तो they will be of no use. I'll request Saeed Qureshi Sahab to give an answer to this.
What we have done, what we have done is we have made some modules, obviously not.
आवाज क्यों कट गई?
आवाज नहीं
आ रही है।
नहीं, अब आ रही है सर।
जा रही है, आ रही है
जी, आ रही है, अब आ रही है।
अच्छा, तो वो जो है, what we did is we have started off with a thyroid module and we are experimenting that on the students. And if we find that we are successful, we'll fine tune that module, and then at the same time we have started work on other modules as well. So a lot of the clinical examination modules and some of the question answers on these modules will be ready and will be put online.
Right.
that is the only way that we could think of.
Okay. But yeah, that is one way forward. I agree 100%. I think there's another question for you, Dr. Qureshi. What is your opinion in plasma transfusion from a recovered patient of COVID-19? Is it really working? As it had been tried in Iraq?
What is my opinion regarding
plasma transfusion?
Use of plasma? Well, it has been used previously as well in previous pandemics, and it has some restrictions that it has to be blood group matched. The plasma that you are using, you can get adverse reactions. So all of these are problems that can occur. It works. Yesterday I was watching the, I think it was Sama television, and there was a doctor from northern KPK who was who himself was a patient and had benefited from it. But what we think is, as far as the Dow University is concerned, what we think is that the better way to go about it would be to isolate the immunoglobulins and then use these isolated, purified, sterilized immunoglobulins and use these in patients.
Right. Thank you, sir. There are a lot of questions coming in. Sorry? Assessment, yes. A lot of questions about assessment, which I think Professor Tariq Rafi has already spoken about, and Dr. Qureshi, you've also spoken about it. So I'm going to go, yes, there's one question that the public is very cynical about this particular pandemic. And there are a lot of rumors and different stories going out. How do we, people are getting agitated, patients attendants are getting violent. How are hospitals protecting themselves? How can we convince the public this is a real emergency?
Well, the only way is to go about doing it by personally talking to these patients. But what happens is in certain communities, along with one patient, you have another 100 people who come in. to the hospital, and that's where the problem starts. So the I was reading in the newspaper that for the civil hospital, now they have got a plan of action with rangers and police being present there all the time. So that is one way of dealing with the mob. But as far as even when you have patients who have a single attendant, even then you have problems of questions. And the biggest problem comes when you have a patient who is likely to be COVID-19, but the PCR is negative. But if you look at the radiological investigations, all of these are suggestive of COVID-19. And that's where the patient's relatives don't accept it and start questioning, why are you putting this patient into the COVID ICU when the COVID test is negative? Now, that patients and doctors need to realize that even in China, they considered the CT scan of chest to be the best investigation. And only after the CT scan chest was suggestive of COVID-19 would they do PCRs. They were not even doing PCRs on patients. Here, obviously, especially in the public sector, it's difficult to use the CT scans because then that room becomes contaminated. So what we rely on is a chest X-ray, and chest X-ray findings are also fairly clear and classical.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Qureshi. There's a lot of questions coming regarding this only. There's another question to all three VCs. Dear sir, three leaders from Sindh Mega University of Public Health, what is your plan for healthcare workers during the lockdown? Government is doing a good job, but major population have controversial thoughts. How will you plan for safety of doctors and staff? I think this is addressed to all three VCs.
Dr. B.K. Ram, do you have any comment to make on this?
Yes, sir. So what we are doing over here in Hyderabad, we are lucky in hospital. The people those are working in the COVID ward, they are not. Only one person is infected. They are not infected. If we take the proper.
Can you put your camera on, please?
Oh yes. Okay. So what we have to do for the prevention of the COVID infection in doctors and paramedics, what we have to do, we should minimize the number of the doctors at a time, and their duty hours should be very less, and they should go inside the. They should sit there in office beside the ICU or ward. They should go in the ICU less than 30, stay in the ICU less than 30 minutes, and they should wear the proper protection kits. And unfortunately, these are very short. So we have to manage the cases. Suppose at a time in postgraduate students, suppose as postgraduate students, they are all are present in our university, but we have divided them. In morning, everybody was coming, but now we have divided them 1 or 2. The postgraduate they should come only in the quantity which is required for to look after the patients. 1 or 2 doctors are sufficient in shift, and their exposure should be less than 6 hours, not more than 6 hours. Ideally, it should be 4 hours. And another thing, the doctors they are performing their duty for 1 week. 1 doctor or 1 pair, 3 doctors or 3 shift doctors or 4 shift doctors. They work for 1 week. They should not go there to their homes or their houses, because they can contaminate the people. Another thing, what we observed at here, most of the doctors, because this is a new disease, and the regowning of the gowns and these things and these PP kits, they are really not aware of that. So we are giving the multiple time on the training for donning of these PP kits, and we should arrange these PP kits. We should not compromise, because if 1 doctor or 1 paramedic or 1 people, suppose they die, then other doctor will be discouraged and they will not deal with these patients. Then this will create a lot of the big problem, big social problems as well. So we should so we should stress on the proper wearing of PP kits, and we should reduce the number of the doctors or paramedics that are working in that unit. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're right. We have to reduce exposure to have rotas which gives minimum exposure to all healthcare workers. There's a question about, I think, another 5 minutes of questions and then we will finish. There is a question about nursing and paramedical education and how is GSMU planning to assess the students of the nursing as well as the physiotherapy and others. Sir, Professor Tariq Rafi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Look, we have, as already I have said, that for the nursing and paramedics, that we have already gone for physiotherapy and nursing. We already have online classes which are going on, and the semester exam is going to be conducted in June, but we have delayed that till the end of this year. Maybe in October, November, we'll take the first semester of them, and that will be. No, we can't decide right now what will be the position in October, November. Maybe we are in a position to call them physically to appear in the exam and then to appear in the Viva. But if, God forbid, the conditions are not conducive for that, then probably what we will be doing is we will be taking an online examination, and at the same time we will be doing an online Viva. That is what we have planned for both the physiotherapy and the nursing. But because these are different special conditions that we have, special circumstances, so we have to modify our examination criteria for this. One thing that we are looking forward is that we are searching for, I've asked my IT people to look for different programs which are available. The HEC has given us different type of softwares and programs where how can we conduct the examination, how can the assessment would be done. They have sent us new instructions and guidelines and with different softwares that they have available with them. We are also trying to come into contact with the Virtual University and Allama Iqbal Open University, because these are the two universities in Pakistan who from the inception are doing online examinations and are doing online teaching. So they are the ones who are best trained for this, and we are trying to get their experience in this so that we can utilize some of that for our students. Though we differ because we need to have a practical training at the same time, but at least their experience in conducting the online exam, open book exam, what we say, and the assessment programs that they could be of some help to us. So that is what we have in our mind right now.
Thank you, Dr. Rafi. One last question before we end, and that's to Professor Saeed Qureshi. This is regard to the antibody testing for COVID-19 that is currently being offered in various labs. What is its relevance, and should we be recommending it to people?
Well, the antibody tests are not really we can't use them for diagnosis. But what we found is we were doing PCRs, and at the same time we were doing IgM and IgG tests. And IgM would come positive around 5 days after the patient had been infected, while the IgG would be positive after 10 to 12 days. Now these tests are used for seroprevalence and for seeing what is the antibody level in the population, how many of these people have turned immune to the COVID-19 virus. But although the manufacturers keep on flogging that we should be using these as diagnostic tests, I personally don't think that these are to be used as diagnostic tests. And in the United Kingdom now they have started what they are specific about the manufacturer. They are just using Roche kits, and again the reason for doing this is that if you are immunoglobulin G or immunoglobulin positive, then they don't restrict your movements. But if you are immunoglobulin negative, they still put restrictions on you. And in the United Kingdom, the restrictions are very, very strict. So that is the main advantage of doing the immunological tests.
Thank you, Dr. Saeed. That was very useful because a lot of people have that question, and the lay public keeps asking the healthcare professional what to do. So with this, we would end our session. I would like to heartily thank all our vice chancellors for giving their valuable time. I know how difficult it is to spare even 1 hour for these type of things. Vice Chancellor Saeed Qureshi, Vice Chancellor Bikaram, and Vice Chancellor Tariq Rafi, thank you so much for sharing your experience, what is happening currently, and what is the future challenges that we are all going to be facing. I'd also like to thank IT department, Mr. Aurangzeb and his team, and media cell Aspia, Ms. Aspia, for helping us in publicizing this event, as well as for ensuring that things go smoothly. And so we thank you once again, participants, for providing such a vast area of questions. I'm sorry we couldn't answer all of them. There wasn't enough time, but they were all very relevant, and I hope many of them have been answered. Please join us for the next webinar on public health, which is the response to pandemic. And this will be next Tuesday, 9th of June from 11 to 12. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.